This is Rebuttl, presented by Extra Insights. Hello and welcome. My name is Vikram Pratap Singh, and this is Rebuttl, presented by Extra Insights. Rebuttl is a civilized debate on issues that matter for curious news consumers. Even in today's day and age, casteism is rampant in India. Lower caste representation in positions of power is still meagre. But with the upper castes showing signs of getting frustrated with being denied seats they have earned via merit, is it time to scrap reservations? This brings us to the topic of today's debate: reservation, need of the hour or thing of the past. Let me quickly establish the rules. Each participant gets a total of 5 minutes for opening comments, 3 minutes to rebuttal and refute, and 1 minute to share their closing comments. Speaking first and for the motion is a third-year biotech student from the Heritage Institute of Technology and a member of the Heritage Debating Society, Rajdeep Konar. Speaking against the motion is Priyanka Das from the Presidency University, who also volunteers at Kolkata Center for Creativity. Take it away, Rajdeep.
Good morning and regards to my fellow debater. So, what I would like to begin by is that what is reservation in India today and what we are trying to do here. So, I would like to consider that in this current context of this debate, we are talking about the Indian scenario, because reservation is mostly a thing in our country, and how does reservation work is by systemic arrangement of seats or quotas to the lower caste people or to the Dalits. Now, why is this needed? I personally believe that reservation, what we are trying to do through reservation is that make up for the decades and decades of wrong that we have done to these lower caste people and the Dalits and such others whom we owe reparations to. I personally believe that reparations are owed to them, maybe not financially, but we owe it to them because we have taken away their chance in all ways. We have not given them financial opportunities, we have not given them educational opportunities because of the treatment that has been meted out to them. Today, they might be at a back spot than other castes or other people. Why? Because they were looked at in another sort of way. They were looked at in a different way from how you would look at to a higher caste person, and you would know that this person would not be given the same opportunity as anybody else. Let's say they would automatically be taken to be on a lower on a lower level because they are a Dalit, and they would be considered to be inferior. They would be considered to be inferior to them, and thus further making it worse for them because those opportunities are already being taken away. And this kind of behavior accumulating throughout the ages and throughout the decades, being going on and on like this gradually automatically puts them in a much worse position than the equivalent Brahmin or the equivalent person from another caste. So I believe that this is a compensatory element for us. It's a compensatory element where we are trying to make up for what we have done always. And how can we compensate for this? I personally believe that the best way to compensate for this is to provide them with easier education, because education is the key to a quality of life, right? Education is the key to a quality of life, because ancestrally this group has been economically weak. This group has been comparatively weaker because of the treatment that has been meted out to them, where they haven't been given the opportunities, where chances have been taken away from them. Now, some might say that why would reservation be considered in the current day and age? Why would reservation be considered in the current age where things are much better? Well, to that I say, for example, let me consider that tomorrow a certain person steals 100 rupees from me, okay? And then after like a month or two, I go up to them and I say that, okay, you took my 100 rupees, give me back my 100 rupees. But by that time, they have already taken that 100 rupees and made that 100 rupees into 1,000 rupees. So basically what I would say is that at that time when I'm asking for the 100 rupees back, it is not just the 100 rupees anymore. He has made it into 1,000 rupees. So I'm obviously owed a bit more than the 100 rupees, right? Because that has been profited. That has been made into something better. So in the same way, I believe that just because the higher caste people have meted out treatment to them right now, if they just come up and say, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that, well, that doesn't solve the problem, right? What I believe is that currently, if since you have reservation, some people might be looking at it in a way that, okay, if we don't have reservation, it's more equality, it's giving equal treatment. But now the thing is that it's not just about equal treatment, right? You have to understand that if you take away this treatment, what happens is people go back to how they used to behave. Right now, casteism is not gone away from our society. What happens in villages, like Dalit is given tea in, let's say, paper cups, while a higher class people is given tea in glass cups. Now, these little things are what matters. So inherently, it is there in your brain that, these people are a bit lower than us. You might not be expressing it out loud, but it definitely is there to a certain point in some people. And when this reservation is removed, those feelings come back pouring in. Like, I would like to say that this reservation is sort of like a cap on or control on these feelings, which furthers inclusion of lower caste people or lower tribes into such positions of power and such positions of responsibility, and further helps them to go up in this world. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajdeep. Those were some great points. Dalits and other backward classes need reservation. We owe them reparations. Providing education will be key for backward classes. Equal opportunities must be given. Removing reservation will further divide the gap. I will now request Priyanka to go ahead with her opening statements.
On side opposition, I disagree that at present the Indian reservation system that is used in every bureaucratic, political, educational, healthcare institution still merits continued usage. I think the system is outmoded and had been built with a flawed calculus to begin with. Given that there is a threshold to meet in order to be able to enter all of the prior mentioned institutions, the threshold happens to be constructed according to the need of the institution. This means both institution and the general threshold implemented bears alignment. The alignment, however, is disrupted when you drastically lower the threshold to permit entry to historically repressed minorities. Not only is that a direct indication of your inability as a government to address the need of the threshold even today, which is to say the society continues to be repressive towards these minorities due to lack of social development and programs that should educate people against such discrimination and make them respectfully abide by the anti-discrimination laws. On the flip side, it exacerbates the problem and turns a blind eye saying, we have done whatever we could, we have done enough. A third problem to this includes your undermining of their intellectual and authoritative abilities, the lack of contribution to enhance their intellectual and authoritative abilities in turn. This is evident at every educational level. Probably another outmoded system of the country, which is why private education is overly prioritized within the country, where citizens consider government institutions to be dysfunctional. The apathy continues to grow without much cure. Returning to the problem, however, of misalignment of threshold, let us take the example of how academic thresholds are lowered. To permit entry to minorities, note it has reached a point of convenient deflection of public's attention towards their historically repressed social position, which till date is met with the least probable attention over the government's incapacity to educate them and enable them to reach the appropriate threshold. Upon entry, the minorities are obviously looked down upon, but this happens on the outside. The impact is deeper within. when they begin to doubt their potential as well. Moreover, lowering threshold to entry does not translate into lower threshold of academic instruction. And in the absence of proper review of candidates to see if the institution could benefit them, they suffer from cognitive dissonance, imposter syndrome. Their presence is continually invalidated with instances of microaggression that they do not deserve, and their overall upkeep is either unmaintained or ignored. There are two obvious possible solutions to this that nobody is willing to take up in this country. The first is to earnestly try to fix the need of representation, preferably in India, where the state education boards and schools do not lack the fundamental flaws, that they are, or where they lack the fundamental flaws which they have today, because of one of the core problems is that we have standardized tests without adequately standardizing our educational system. Therefore, minority candidates from economically deprived backgrounds are unable to fulfill the mark which is required. The second is to fix the calculus, right? Which means it should be your aim to help the minorities to self actualize and enrich their communities. And for this, you need to help them maintain an uniform threshold, increase the intake capacity within these institutions, enhance overall system of education for them to actualize within these institutions. Otherwise, they continue to feel otherized everywhere, internally debilitating them to self actualize and enrich their communities. In the present status quo, there are far negligible mechanisms to address these problems efficiently with proper efficacies, leading to a progress paradox where progress is obviously not inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyanka. Great points there by you. The government has failed to remove discrimination. Apathy continues to grow towards historically backward classes. Uniform threshold key to an equal society. We will now begin our second round of rebuttals and refute. Rajdeep, the mic is all yours.
Hi. So, what I understood from the opposition's point are the problems within the systemic education that our country has mostly, and how it's making things worse. Now, like I said, I would like to go back to my points that I've made in my last speech, where I have mentioned that what we are doing again is reparations. Now, people are questioning that why do they have lower threshold. I'm going to be speaking very practically about this, where I consider that the treatment that has been meted out to these Dalits over the years, it's obviously different from what a Brahmin has experienced or what I as an upper caste person might have experienced. Now, the consideration here is that I understand someone might say that, of course, I did not choose to be born into this family. All right, I did not choose to be born into a rich family, or I did not choose to be born into a poor family. But the thing is that even if you do not choose to be born into a rich family, or if you do not choose to be born into a family which is extremely well to do and super powerful in society, you still reap the benefits, right? You will still reap the benefits. You might deny that it was not your choice. It's definitely not your choice. But at the end of the day, you are reaping the benefits of the system. You are reaping the benefits of what your ancestors have done for so many years. Now, since you are reaping those benefits, you're obviously at an upper hand. You are kind of at an upper hand than certain other people who are not that privileged over the years. They might not have been exposed in the same way. That is why I'm saying that education is needed to propel them ahead in this world. I understand that they are saying that the opposition is saying that this will cause further discourse. Now, like I said, there is a pro and con to every situation. Now, what if, let me just argue the opposition's point and consider that what can I do? If you want to now, if you want to remove that discourse, you have to remove reservation. Again, if I remove reservation, it's not that the anti-Dalit sentiments or the or the anti-lower caste sentiments have gone away. In our country, around 70% of people in the villages, in the in lower background towns, still have those beliefs. They still have those beliefs. Say the Dalits are given less grains. This is a very controversial topic, but what recently happened in the Hathras case, people, just the upper caste people, they want to assert their dominance. They want to show that yes, I'm more dominant than you, and they just want to make a statement, right? And that is what the problem. That is the problem that happens. So it's not that if you just remove reservation, everything will be fine. It's what mostly likely is going to happen is that those feelings will come back in, and they will again start being marginalized. Again, like I'm saying, that yes, there may be people who are given some preference because of being Dalits, and they might be very well off, but that is not the kind of group I can consider in my debate, because that again is the top of the crop. I cannot always consider the top of the crop who are riding in BMWs and are extremely privileged to have a very good education over the past 10 years. But I also have to consider the other 80% of Dalits in the country who have not been preferred, and who are still at are at a backward level because of the treatment that has been meted out to them over the years. That has resulted in them getting into this position because they did not have an opportunity to rise up. There have been some Dalits maybe who are very rich, but how they may have businesses, they may have they may have done something good, but it's not necessarily that they have improved. It's not. I'm sorry. It's not necessarily that they have improved on their class of life by being educated, by getting a chance. They had to fight for it. They had to do businesses. They had to work their way up in life. But now we owe to these Dalits reparations that we are going to give you a chance. We are going to make up for our mistakes. And like I would like to mention John Locke's philosophy, where he says that if you have done some wrong, it's not necessary that you can just say you don't know when it will be enough. The answer to when will it be enough, there is no answer to when it will be enough, right? Because for hundreds of years and hundreds of years, you have done so much against these people to push them down. You don't know when it will be enough to make up for those reparations. So with that, I would like to end my speech. Thank you.
Education key to uniform threshold. Very well said. I would request Priyanka to go ahead with her round of rebuttals and refute.
I think the proposition today is giving you a false comparative, right? They tell you that comparatively, people are achieving success under their paradigm. The problem there is that reparation in itself is transactional in principle. And the transaction or the trade-off there remains that the government is not incentivized to make social or ground level changes and advocate for social programs that actually help these people to actualize in the real world, right? Which means that repressive mentality within the people still continues to exist, while on the surface level, your government gets away with giving you representation. The problem is that this motion uniquely solves this because the moment you actually hold the government accountable in absence of representation, you're able to see its flaws. It's hiding its flaws in the present status quo by giving you these representations which are not inclusive with regards to progress. Because the moment you enter these institutions of power and realize that you have been at the ground level debilitated by the very lack of proper mechanisms being implemented by the government, primarily in the educational field, where so many state educational boards and schools exist without proper medium of education, which is why they need to bring in the representation form of mechanism into action in the first place. Because obviously there is disparity of education for people who belong to minority sections and are economically deprived or historically oppressed and repressed within the society, and they are unable to access proper standardized mechanisms of education within the status quo. The government would continue to function in this way unless and until you hold them accountable in the way that I propose to you today on side opposition. The problem is that this comparative is then going to be better on our side because people would now feel inclusive within the mechanism of progress that the proposition sympathizes with in this debate, right? Because then they'll actually be able to own their progress and not feel excluded within the institutions that they'll make into with uniform standards and with uniform intellectual capabilities, and they are capable to meet that threshold. It is not that they're intellectually deprived or deserve being intellectually undermined under the government system and deserve to be under this kind of a system in the first place. So the cure only happens under my paradigm where this surface level representation is removed.
Thank you, Priyanka. Reparation involves money, and doing that would mean getting away from ground realities and thousands of years of oppression. We are almost towards the end of rebuttal. I would request Rajdeep to go ahead with his closing statements.
Hi. Okay. I think this was a good debate, and I personally believe I agree that some people might look at the situation as if I'm doubting the intellectuality of Dalits, but I would like to specify that that's not the case. And like you said, Vikram, you have seen the treatment that's been meted out to Dalits in villages, and I'm considering these people right here and now is that if they get a better opportunity, it's not that I am doubting their intellectuality, but of course it would be a bit easier for them to access these systems if there were reservations and reparations had been owed. So with that, thank you. There were incredible points made on both sides, I think, and it was great to be a part of this debate.
Thank you, Rajdeep. Priyanka, I now request you to go ahead with your closing statements.
Of course, under a side opposition paradigm, it would be ideal to remove representations and reservations and for the government to focus upon ground realities to actualize real and meaningful change within the paradigm. But opposition would also be charitable and also be a bit more practical with this regards, which is why in my opening statement, I did mention a uniform threshold being acted and not complete removal of representation. There was twofold proposal of mechanisms. First is to ideally remove representations or reservations for minorities, for them to be able to enter these institutions. If that ideal is improbable or is likely to be unachieved within our society, then what is the better ideal to be achieved is to create multiple other mechanisms to cure present educational problems, and also while you keep the representation or reservation, you cure and fix the calculus upon which you decide the entry. That that actually meant that when you admit these people within, you maintain the uniform threshold for their intellectual capabilities, for them to be later be able to own their achievements in life. And also, when you admit them based upon their identities. So, of course, you will admit people with probably greater intake capacity within these institutions, them them adequately representing their communities, but the threshold would be uniform in order to stop the incidence of microaggression and in order to stop their capabilities and achievements being continually undermined and invalidated. Thank you for the debate.
Thank you, Priyanka. With that, we come to the close of Rebuttal. Thank you, Priyanka and Rajdeep, for joining us. It was a pleasure to hear you on Rebuttal. Our listeners can participate in the debate on our website or via the Extra Insights app. We would love to hear your rebuttals. We shall see you next week with another real debate.